Hello everybody and welcome back to another CB Show Tunes tutorial. Now today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting this artificial intelligence to chase us around. Awesome. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we need to do is of course build this AI. Now to do that, you simply need to come over to the hierarchy, right click and press create empty game object. From there, you're just going to give it a new name. You can do that from over here or just press F2 and boom bada bing. Now I'm going to just call this zombie. Alright, awesome. So that's all we need for our zombie, right? We literally just have this zombie just floating inside the air. Obviously, we really don't want it floating inside the air, so we're going to change the y-axis to 0. Alright, cool. Now, this zombie really doesn't have a great appearance, so we're going to go ahead and change that. So we're going to come over here to this horror creature pack, and I'm going to just drag and drop this zombie creature right there. Awesome. Now it's a little bit bigger than that one, but that's okay. Alright, so now we have our zombie set up. But if we press play, we're not going to actually move around, which is a terrible, terrible thing. So what we want to do is create a script that allows us to be able to move this object. So lucky for you guys, I already had that script created. Now, if you want to, you can go over to the scripts folder that you have, and then go over to your or just simply right click and press create, and then press C# script. Now of course I have mine inside of this character folder, and I called it base AI controller. Once you have that opened up, you're going to have a couple things that you need to do. So we need to create, of course, well first we need to get the namespace or library for the AI. Now Unity luckily has this already set up for us, so we just need to come up to the top of the script, type in using Unity Engine.ai. We also want to require this component of NavMeshAgent because, hey, you know what? That is Unity's navigation tool. Alright, cool. We already have everything set up there. We're going to go over to our variables. Yay. So, inside of variables, we have a public transform called target. This is going to keep track of player characters inside of the scene. If our character is going to be being chased, we want this target to be equal to something. If we don't want it to be chased, it's going to be equal to null. And of course, at some eventual point, we're going to set this to where it will choose a random location to travel, but for now, we're not going to worry about that. We need to get this NavMeshAgent from this component, so we're going to just call that nm. We're going to also need to get the animator component from the child component, and we're going to call that anim. Now to be able to cast these objects, you need to go over to your void start function, and we're going to simply call it from the component we want to pull it from. So we want to get the NavMeshAgent from this object, so we're just going to call getComponent NavMeshAgent. We want to get the anim from the child component, so we're going to say getComponent in children animator. Boom, done. Alright, awesome. Now before we get into the updates function, we're going to go over to the functions folder right here. I'm going to actually change that to properties because that's actually what it is. We have two different properties here. We have a vector3 and we have a float. This vector3 allows us to collect the target destination. Now at the top, we have if our target is equal to null. This means that if our target is not equal to a player, we need to do something. Now, at this point, we're going to just return a vector3.0, which means it's going to move to the center of the world. But eventually, we're going to change this to a random point inside the world. So just keep an eye out for that in the future. We also have this else statement. So if this is not equal to null, then we're going to return as our target's position. So we're going to be grabbing its transform component and then just simply putting in its position as a vector3 location. As for this float called curve speed, this is going to change the animation speed for our character. Now we're going to be doing that later on inside this video, so just keep an eye out for that as well. I will leave it inside the timestamp as well so that it's easier to be able to locate. Right here, we're going to be checking the velocity's magnitude, if it's greater than a 0.1 in the speed factor. Now here, if our velocity is greater than this 0.1, we want to return as a mathf.lerp, which means we're going to be transferring our current value, which is going to be our cur speed value, from its current value of our current speed to 1. So basically, we're going to be setting it to move. Then we need the transition time, so I said 15 multiplied by time.delta time, or a 0.15 if you're not using time.delta time. We have this else statement, so if this magnitude is less than or equal to 0, then we're going to be setting the speed equal to 0, just like so. It's pretty much the same concept. Awesome. So we now have our properties taken care of, so we just need to come over to the update function, and look at that, super easy to follow. We just have this move function, so we're going to be grabbing our NavMeshAgent. We're going to be setting its destination to our target destination property. For our animation, we're going to be setting our anim.setFloat. We're going to be doing our speed value, which make sure that you keep an eye on how you spell this, and we're going to be setting it to our current speed float property. Alright, awesome. So now we have this all working. You have a full script that's capable of knocking everything else out. Alright, so to be able to actually get our AI to actually animate though, because right now all it's going to do is be able to just stand there, and we really don't want that. So make sure you do grab your AI. We're going to be dragging that on there. As you can see, our NavMeshAgent drops as well. We have our base AI controller, but our target is equal to none, which means that if we started this game, it's not going to chase after the player. That's not something we want at the moment. So we're going to just simply drag our FPS controller onto that as our target, and now it will chase our player. We also want to change a couple of these values right here, so I'm going to change it to like 5 on the speed, angular speed, probably set that to like maybe 600 or so, acceleration, maybe like 21, I don't know. I'm just winging it at the moment. Stopping distance, how far we want it to stop away from the player, so yeah. Now if you notice this little green, I guess you could say lines that are circling this character, the problem with this is that it's not actually circling the character the way it should be. So we need to adjust this position. So let's go ahead and first change the size of this. Let's go ahead and just change it to 1. We'll keep the height the same. And we'll just simply change the location of this zombie graphics. So like so. Let's go and just pull that forward a little bit. Okay, we're almost there. Awesome. So now we have our zombie inside the right position. That head might stick out a little bit, but that's alright. Okay, so for our animation, we do need to be able to go over to our creature and make sure that we do create, or right click and press create, and find our animator controller. Once you got that done, make sure that you select your zombie and then drag that animator controller on there. Now I call mine base zombie Dimbo. You can call it whatever you want to call it. Now inside this right here, we're going to create one parameter. So if you have a layers tab and a parameters tab, select the parameters tab, press the plus key, and then find float. You're going to rename that as speed, and boom, done. Over here inside this field, you're going to simply right click, go over to create state, and from new blend tree. Now for this blend tree, it's going to, you can just simply double click that. It's going to automatically use the parameter that you want because it's the only parameter over here. I'm going to simply make sure that you do select this right here and then press speed. We're going to press the plus, add motion, add motion. Oh yeah, keep in mind that you do want to make sure that this is spelled the exact same way that you spelled inside of your script. Okay. So for our motion, we're going to be using a 1D type, and the first one is going to be idle, the second one is going to be moving. You can find your animations most of the time inside your character itself. If you don't have animations for it, there are plenty of places to get animations, but you know, that's up to you. So we're going to be finding the idle animation, so I'm going to just simply drag that on there, and I'm going to be finding the moving animation and drop it on there like so. Now if I press play, as you can see, we're not going to be moving. It's going to be moving a little bit because it's idle. And if I adjust the speed, we're now able to move. It seems a little bit slow, so I'm going to just change this speed value to 3. And as you can see, now our character is actually moving. Awesome. So let's go ahead and just drop that back down, hit Control S, and we're going to go over to our game view. We need to make sure everything is set up here. Now if I press play right now, I already have a navigation mesh actually set up. If you don't have a navigation mesh set up already, make sure that you select, say for instance, your floor. Make sure it is set to static. Go over to your navigation panel. If you don't have this navigation panel over here, that's okay. Go over to this Windows panel, drop down to AI, and you're going to find the navigation panel right there. Go ahead and select on that. Go over to the Bake tab right here and simply press Bake. If, say for instance, if I change this to a 0.5 and I press Bake now, you're going to notice that we have this very tiny narrow area right here, which means that any character that is a 0.5 in width will be able to move in most of the areas, but they won't be able to fit through here. So if we drop it down to a 0.25, it'll make it a little bit easier for our characters to get through certain areas. Keep in mind that this navigation mesh right here is going to be larger. So if you take a look at the radius, it's 1, which means it's not going to fit through that door. So just keep that in mind. Alright, so once you have that navigation set up, you're going to hit play, and we're going to see this character actually chase us. So as you can see, our enemy is chasing us just like he should. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, check out some other videos, and I'll see you guys next time.